Well, welcome back to the Fish Files. One of my favorite aquarium setups is a South American biotope. And within that biotope, it's always nice to have a few South American wild cichlids. So we're going to go over the various South American cichlids. I'm going to not go into some of the smaller species, which are the rams and the apistogrammas. We're going to focus on those cichlids that are medium to larger sizes that you can find in Central and South America. I'm going to briefly go into the controversies of each of those species. Primarily, is it an Altifrons? Is it a Surinamensis? Is it a Brasiliensis? Is it a Heckelei? We'll briefly go into all of that too, see if we can find some substance so you guys can help identify these different species when you go into the pet store. And also we'll look at some of the more singular pet fish because they get so big and aggressive they can't really be in a biotope. And that's things like Oscars. There's other things like Managuensis, Nicaraguensis, fish that get big and very aggressive. For those purposes, I brought in flower horns, which is a hybrid, not really a pure South American fish, parrotfish, which is the same thing, and convicts, and Oscars. So we'll look at those. But first, let's start with the jewel of the South American species families, and this is the Geophagus or earth eater family. There's so many species that you can find in the trade. I get requests for Central American species, Cubensis, Nicaraguensis, all these species that they're a little harder to find because you really don't have any flights coming from Central America that are full of Central American wild fish. They just don't have a trade there. I want to show one that's called the Redhead Tapajo. The Redhead Tapajo is just a Tapajo river, and stuff from the Tapajo river, like Tapajo Pike Cichlids, tend to get a lot of red in them. It's just because of the chemistry of the water. And the Redhead Tapajo cichlid, which is a Geophagus earth eater, is no exception. This guy is about 2.5 inches. And at this stage, actually at 2.5 inches, I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, but to get a bright red head, and you usually don't find them on imports, offered on the import list. We get ours, for instance, from a breeder in Florida who brought him up and has been very successful with a pond near Tampa. A little more expensive than the other cichlids. They're a little more difficult to breed, and they're a little bit more resistant to change. So they're not as adaptable to the aquatic environment as other fish. They need very clean water, and they don't like fluctuations in temperature. So keep that temperature between 75 and 80 degrees. Keep a good filter on your aquarium, and you'll have great success. If you don't, I guarantee you these guys will get sick. Most of the other Geophagus are very hardy, but these guys, for whatever reason, are not so. So maintain your good water conditions, which you should be doing anyways, and you're going to have good success with a Redhead Tapajo or Geophagus Tapajo. One note I'd like to mention when buying these from a pet store, try and find them that are larger than 2 inches. The problem with Geophagus is at 2 inches, they're silver and their markings aren't as distinct, so sometimes it's harder to find one from another, and if a pet store has mixed them up in a tank, it really is going to be difficult for you to know if you're getting a Brasiliensis or Surinamensis. So try and look for something that's about this size we're showing here, which is about 2.5 inches or larger. Then you're going to know what you're getting. It'll compare closer to that Google picture you're looking for. And I also got to warn you, the Google picture you're looking at is usually a male in heat. So rarely do you have that full, beautiful, amazing coloration that you get from some of the breeders, unless you get an adult in heat male in your aquarium. That's just a couple points on shopping for Geophagus. I'm not like soliciting for subscriptions, but if you do want to subscribe, please subscribe. I had carpal tunnel surgery, so a man wasn't designed to punch on the computer for 50 years. So that's hence I now have carpal tunnel. Oh, I don't have it anymore. I have surgery taken care of. I had it yesterday, so I'm getting this thing off Sunday, which is like 4 days. It's not that bad. And then it's off and it's good as new. See, I can move my fingers, but I can't lift anything. So also, if you ever get surgery for this or anything else, don't get that hand in aquarium water. Keep it clean. Shower's fine, but my doctor said, don't get your hand in aquarium water. Fish are clean. The water's clean to a point. But remember, all this water has natural bacteria. This is a natural environment. If it was perfectly clean, the fish would die. Likewise, suspect bacteria probably that you don't want in any injuries. So as a caution, whether you get carpal tunnel syndrome or you're a 10-year-old kid that just skinned his elbow on his bicycle fall, don't put that elbow or that wrist into the aquarium. If you like this show, or if you want to learn more about carpal tunnel syndrome, please like and subscribe. And if you like any of these fish in the show, be sure to check out the link aquariumfish.com. They have most of them in stock. And also always check out your neighborhood aquarium store. All right, here's another Geophagus I really like because his nickname is the Fathead Balzini, Geophagus balzini. All Geophagus are earth eaters. They all like to dig in and filter through that fine material in the bottom of whatever water, pond, lake, river they're in. And then they mouth brood too. They keep their babies in their mouths for about 10 days before they're free swimming. And they will breed in your aquarium. Fathead Balzinis are unique because they get a big fat head, and particularly the males. So it's easy. The females have a more defined, sharp forehead, similar to most other Geophagus, but the males are a blockhead. They go, and they are not that aggressive, despite the name. They sound like they're pugnacious boxers with a name like Fathead Balzini, but they are not. They are mild, easygoing for Geophagus. In general, Geophagus are peaceful cichlids compared to something like African peacocks, which are somewhat peaceful, but more aggressive than these guys. They will eat anything smaller than their mouths. So you can't put Geophagus with things like shrimp. You can't put them with very small tetras like ember tetras. You could put them with very large tetras though. So good sized penguin tetras, Buenos Aires tetras, Von Rios, Prostellas, probably half the tetras are big enough to fit in any tank with these Geophagus. Also large cardinals you can put with Geophagus. You might lose and large neons, but not mediums. God dang it, pretty much anything that's big, that's an inch or bigger, put it in with them. They'll be fine. Okay, so these are the Fathead Balzinis. There's not much more to say about them other than they come from originally Suriname and Brazil area, and they are that kind of upper right-hand region of the jungle, but they really aren't caught in the wild anymore. They're from another pond in Florida, and they're a terrific breeder. They come in very healthy. Unlike the Redhead Tapajos, they are tough to kill. They aren't prone to getting ick like the Redhead Tapajos, so they have a wider temperature range they can tolerate, and if you get a little ammonia spike, they're not just going to die off like the Redhead Tapajos will. So I really recommend these guys, Fathead Balzinis. If nothing else, I recommend them for their name. And now we come to our first controversy, Geophagus surinamensis. Is it Geophagus surinamensis or is it Geophagus Altifrons? You tell me, because I don't know. I buy these as Geophagus surinamensis from Singapore. And according to the breeder, and he's been doing this for years, he brought in true Surinamensis from Suriname over to Singapore, and he's been breeding them and shipping them around the world as Surinamensis. However, from time to time, I ship these to pet stores who give them to a true hobbyist that's very into the Geophagus, and they swear they're Altifrons. Altifrons in the wild are much more common because they are in a whole range of the countries of Colombia, Brazil, and Suriname, and there's shipping ports. And of course, and Belém in Brazil, but there is no current port from Suriname. Surinamensis, true wild Geophagus surinamensis, you are not going to find in the trade. I would argue if someone says that this is a true wild, unless they brought it in from their suitcase and they happen to be in Suriname and they got it in here. They're just going to take Altifrons and call it Surinamensis. So that's what you got to watch out for if you really care. If you're just an aquarium hobbyist who wants a nice Geophagus in their tank, only gets 4 inches, and it's somewhat peaceful, then it really doesn't matter. These two at maturity look so similar that I can never tell them apart. But this one's, for all intents and purposes, on the import list is a Geophagus surinamensis. It's juvenile size. I'm told if it was a true Altifrons, you'd see some spotting on its fins at the juvenile stage, so maybe. When they're larger, I've seen yellow on fins of Altifrons and Surinamensis, on the ventral fins I'm talking about, sorry. And so, I can't tell even the adults. But if you guys have a very distinct way of telling them apart, please let me know. I'll take it as Bible. We'll put it in the comments section. I'll have to verify. What's the expression? Trust and verify. So if you have, I'm looking forward to finding a little more information on telling them apart. I will tell you, if you go to the pet store and you see Geophagus Surinamensis, most likely it came from Asia. If you see Geophagus Altifrons, most likely it came from a breeder in Florida. And most likely, as they get older, it would be difficult for you to tell them apart. All right, there's no controversy about the next two, primarily because they are breeding size. At 2 inches, you wouldn't be able to tell these two guys apart. But at this size, it's very easy. The first one I'm adding to the tank is Geophagus Brasiliensis, sometimes spelled with a Z, usually with an S, Brasiliensis. They do hark from Brazil, and they have beautiful colors. The next one, which has beautiful finnage, this happens to be a female. It's called the Geophagus Heckelei, or Threadfin Heckelei, because it has long little fins that come off its dorsal fin and its anal fin and its tail fin. It's just gorgeous display when it's swimming around the aquarium. Females have less of that than the little threadfin finnage than the males do. This is a female and she hasn't quite started sporting it. The male Brasiliensis in here, you'll see all the really remarkable colors of Brasiliensis. This is as colorful as South American fish get. The Geophagus Heckelei female is not as colorful, but the finnage in another 6-8 months is going to start really getting these little streamers off its fins. It's going to look really, really pretty. So that's, oh, just a note on, I'm saying these are really, really colorful, and you're going like, oh, Randy, I have like zebra cichlids and peacock cichlids are a lot more colorful than that. That's because South American cichlids evolved in little streams and ponds and maybe some larger rivers. And African cichlids, for the most part, evolved in big giant lakes. Saltwater fish evolved in big giant oceans. To find their partner, they had to have bright display colors so they could find each other from long distances, and they evolved great coloration. So you get from Lake Malawi and Tanganyika and Lake Victoria, you get these beautiful big colorful cichlids. South America, there's a lot of predators. It's a smaller little areas that these guys are evolving in, so they have to have a bit of camouflage. They have to recognize each other, but be camouflaged at the same time. So you're not going to get the same bright coloration. Coloration? Yeah, coloration. You won't get the same coloration in South American species as you will get in African cichlid species. You just won't, unless they're glow angelfish, because technically angelfish is a cichlid, and they're bright red, but they're not really a cichlid because they're crossbred with a jellyfish, so they're, I don't know what they are, they're patented. There's a dozen peacock bass we can find in the aquarium trade. Peacock bass are one of the few game fish that are actually available to us in the aquarium trade. The reason is Fish and Wildlife restricts our trade to ornamental fish only, so I cannot sell salmon and perch and trout, and neither should anyone else in the aquarium trade in the US. And the reason for that is cross-contamination. If you're moving that stuff around and there's such similar species to other native species, they can really wreak some havoc to the local environment. So they don't allow that trade to occur for us hobbyists. One of the fish, though, that's a in-between, very colorful fish fishermen love in South America, and actually was the only fish we were able to catch and eat when we were on Heiko Blair's excursion a few months ago, was a peacock bass. So I have a juvenile 3-inch peacock bass here. It's Cyclosoma ocellaris. They're all cyclosomas, but there's Kilberries, there's Orinacensis, there's a ton of them. They go from either here to about this big. They're all great eating, I can attest to that, and they're great for fishing because they put up a little bit of a fight as well. Very colorful when they're in an adult stage. Not so colorful at this stage, of course, because they have to stay somewhat camouflaged so they don't get eaten by other fish. But they get to the top of the food chain once they become adults. Voracious eaters. Really fun to keep in an aquarium because they're like better than piranhas when it comes to adding fish and watching them just go after them. Super fast, but jumpers. So you need to have a lid on your aquarium if you have peacock bass, and be prepared for those bass to eat anything that's 2 inches or smaller in that aquarium when they're adult size. So you can keep other fish with peacock bass. You can keep Trinidad plecos, any pleco actually that's a good 3 to 4 inches or larger with peacock bass and at 4 inches or greater. But remember, when they're 4 inches or greater, they will go after any small prey. So be careful what you put in with these guys. Otherwise though, they're very peaceful with anything near their size. And this guy is, like I said, he is an Ocellaris, tank raised, not caught from the wild. Most peacock bass are, but I can bring large ones in from the wild. They're brought in from Brazil and from Colombia, not really Peru so much. And we can usually get them in about 6 inches. So we do bring that in for, usually for public aquariums. They're a little expensive and they're a pain in the foot for a pet store to maintain, because they use so much tank space. But a lot of public aquariums have displays of peacock bass, and they're fun to bring in at the big sizes. But I always stock them at this little 3-inch kind of aquarium pet store size. So if you actually want to see peacock bass eaten in the wild jungles of Colombia, check out the video that our producer just put together with Heiko Blair and this excursion that I got dragged into and got to eat wild peacock bass, and then for the next 2 days, peacock bass gut stew with the Indians. Quite yummy. Peacock bass were awesome. Really, really good. Peacock bass gut stew, not so. Right, now we are going to go make ourselves Oscar stew. We're going to put in first a wild Oscar. Speaking of eating or making soup with Oscars, they are good eating fish. I've never eaten one, but they do eat them in South America. This is a red Oscar, and this is a lemon Oscar. And there's some controversy on lemon Oscars because if they don't have yellow, they are albinos. And I'm not seeing a lot of yellow. I'm seeing a little bit of yellow on this. If they have no yellow, they're definitely albino. And some breeder has said they're lemon because their trade was short, and he knew they were short, and he said, "Oh, I have lemon," and he shipped them, and that happens to me once in a while. And then we have to say, no, they're not lemons, and we divert them to albino Oscars. And I'm holding this tank right now. He's supposed to be a lemon Oscar, but we'll take a good close look at him with the producer's camera. I'll look at it later and figure out if I can truly call them lemon Oscars. Problem with the breeders is lemon Oscars should have a yellow body and black eyes. They're shipping albino Oscars, red eyes, with yellow bodies. That's becoming very common in the trade, and they're sold, they're not too expensive. They're only like 20% more than an albino Oscar, so it's not like no one's making money off the hobbyists or trying to take advantage of people. It's just the breeders have, I don't know if they've gotten lazy or they lost their breeding stock with the black eyes, but I'm just seeing more and more red eye lemon Oscars. In my mind, aren't true lemon Oscars. But that's the other controversy. Other than that, I can't think of any controversies with South American cichlids, so we covered them all. It's like a Korean soap opera, except it's a very, very short season. Oscars are funny. They're like betas. They like to rest. So you'll see them actually resting on their side from time to time, and they'll pop right up. I guarantee you. Producer, do you have him on your film? He looks like, oh, is he sick? And he's not sick. He's just lazy. I want to really show the wild Oscar, because the wild Oscar is where all these other Oscars came from. In the wild, they have a black and white, very modeled zebra pattern with a red spot on the tail. That's where they get the red gene. And from that red gene were developed the red Oscar, which is this guy here. And if he has some black striation or stripes on him, he's a tiger Oscar. The stripes aren't well defined, so if he has basically a marbled red pattern, he's a tiger Oscar. So that's a classic red Oscar. There's some other hybrids out there. Chile Oscar is probably the newest one. It's about 3 times the cost of a regular tiger Oscar, and it's a bright red Oscar. I have those coming in this weekend. I know I'm going to be shipping some to aquariumfish.com, but we just got on my stock list, so I don't have any orders yet from the pet stores on them. But the Chile Oscars are really bright and pretty, and if you're going to spend money, I'll tell you, you want a nice, well-defined Oscar. Look for one that doesn't have any markings, any scars on its head. Sometimes that's actually hole in the head disease, which Oscars are very prone to, especially larger ones. So make sure their body is free and clear of that. That looks like pitting in the body of the Oscar. Make sure they don't have any, they're hardy fish, make sure they don't have any ick or deformities on the body, because when you buy an Oscar, these are like buying a dog. These guys will live for 20 years. they will be mean and outgrow the tank. You'll get a bigger tank. You won't have anything that you can put in with them because they'll be too mean to him. And pretty soon you're his best friend because he's depending on you for food, and you can't get rid of him because a pet store doesn't want to take a big Oscar. So when you buy an Oscar, be prepared for a 20-year commitment. And these guys start out as fry like all the other fish. They'll get a good 12 inches in fat, and they love live food. They'll eat cichlids, yeah, they will eat small cichlids, but they'll eat pellet food, they'll eat flake food, frozen food, but once in a while, they also, it might be healthy to give them maybe some live feeder guppies or live feeder goldfish. I think almost every aquarium hobbyist, including myself, will tell you, don't rely on just feeder goldfish for any predator fish, because it just doesn't have all the nutrients balanced well in that species. So you're not going to get 20 years out of a fish that's just feeding on feeder goldfish. You need to vary his diet up a bit. But pellet food's great. They love pellet food. I have two more fish to add in that same kind of theme. There's a few South American cichlids, not the Geophagus. Some that are mainly Central American based origins, now pond raised. Like we have black convicts, we have flower horns, we have other fish that can be quite aggressive in the aquarium. At juvenile stages, not so much so. And then we have the flower horn. The flower horn is actually a combination of the meanest fish a guy in Thailand could find, and then there are different variations, different hybrids of different flower horns available. I brought in the most common red dragon flower horn, which is based on the red devil cichlid, and then a secret ingredient. I don't know if it's Oscar or what the breeder put in there, but now it's called the red dragon flower horn. And these guys are all, they don't like being moved around, so they're all in shock. So I'm not worried about the red dragon attacking these other guys. And also they're juveniles. So when they get near breeding stage, they're going to get aggressive. So these guys are far from that. I just like to put them in so you can see comparisons of these aggressive species. And none of these are very expensive. And all of them become very personable. Maybe sometimes not so much the red dragons, sometimes they go psychotic. What we have now is also a convict cichlid. So you can see the convict cichlid and the red dragon are already facing off a bit. Not such a good idea to combine them. I'll keep an eye on it though. We'll take them out before any harm is done to any of these guys. And you can see that the Oscars are just keeping the peace and staying away from those two brutes. So on the right, or on your left, is a convict cichlid. On your right is the red dragon flower horn. Red dragon flower horn, if it's a male, and I can't tell yet if this is a male or female, will develop a hump on its forehead. Not a real distinct one. That has to be bred specifically for show, and those are about 4 times the cost of the regular red dragon flower horns. Red dragon flower horns and red hump flower horns are similar species, but one's bred for a massive, like golf ball size bump on its forehead when it's an adult size. And those guys are mean as heck. They'll go after your finger if you put it in the aquarium, and it hurts, by the way. Looks like the red dragon won the face-off. I have to show, because we're in America, and 2 good friends of mine, Eric and Lucian, just moved from California to Texas, and there happens to be one very popular, very affordable fish that's sold in the aquarium trade from America, from the United States, I should say, from North America, and it's the Texas cichlid. Texas cichlid will grow to 10 inches, and it is a fairly aggressive cichlid, like the convict cichlid. So be prepared as it grows to just keep it with other large aggressive species, but it does get beautiful greens and blacks in its body, and it's from Texas, so what more can you say? That's enough to buy it. And it's usually at this size like $5 or $6. But this is the Texas cichlid, tank raised, or pond raised I should say, now in Florida, and found all over 52 states in your aquarium stores. One more, I want to show one more family of cichlids from South America that are wild caught and you won't find as a tank raised species. And these are the Pike Cichlids. God, I'm supposed to keep my arm up. They start with Cyclosoma, but then there's all kinds of different variations and names. And depending on where they're caught in the rivers down in South America, they can come with different coloration. The Pike Cichlid has a snake-like form. As it grows older, it gets a lot of colorization. Some of them are really bright red, like the red Atabapo Pike Cichlid. The most expensive cichlid you're going to come across across is the Zebrina pike, and in fact it's probably the most expensive freshwater aquarium fish you're going to find in the trade. Zebrina, Z-E-B-R-I-N-A. Zebrina pike, you should look it up at Google. It's an amazing, spectacular fish. We bring them in every couple months. Don't get a lot of requests because of the price point. I have to sell them for $400. This guy I sell wholesale for about $8 to $10. It's technically imported as a strigata, meaning straight lines, strigata, but it's got some different, a few other different patterns to it. It's got this diagonal lines to it. It's pretty neat, and it's clamped its tail right now. It doesn't like being in this aquarium, but it has a very bright caudal tail fin. I think this is going to be a really nice cichlid. I'm not exactly sure where it was caught. We brought it in from Colombia, and Pike Cichlids are jumpers, so they're not like Peacock Bass. You may not have to cover your aquarium, but you will have to give them a little hiding place to keep their stress level low. Put a little rock cave or a piece of driftwood that he can swim under. He likes to hang out in little dark crevices. They adapt well to the aquarium. They eat flake and pellet food, and they do grow though to anywhere from 10 inches, depending on the species, to 24 inches. I think this guy's probably a true strigata, and he should be about a 10-inch fish when he's or she is finished growing. But that is the wild Pike Cichlid. Here's a nice additional family, the Severums. Severums, S-E-V-E-R-U-M, have been bred for a bunch of different colors. The gold Severums is the most common bred color pattern of Severums, and then you have the red spotted gold Severum. Very pretty colors. You can get them from Florida or from Asia. Not too expensive, but I like the wild ones because they have a little more variation in the pattern. Not like this bright, solid gold color, but I like the little subtle stripes and darker spots and red sashes, and you'll get that with, this is called the red shoulder Severum. You don't see any indication of red shoulder yet, so it's not my finest example, but this is what I happen to have in the warehouse right now, just 2-inch juveniles. But they grow, they have a nice oval shape, similar to a discus, and like a discus, they need temperatures of 80 degrees to 85 degrees. Also, like a discus, they don't like sudden changes in temperatures, and they don't tolerate dirty water well. So keep your aquarium warm and well filtered, and your Severums will be happy. When you get a Severum from an aquarium store, or if you buy it online, it shows up at your doorstep, you float the bag for that half hour, it's still going to go through some shock. And if you want to avoid the inevitable ick that these guys are prone to, I put a couple drops of malachite green or some other kind of ick medicine in there as a preventative. Just half dose of what you'd use for a regular medication, or a third dose. And you should avoid any ick outbreaks. Those are your Central and South American cichlids, and Texas counts because it's also found in South America. Well, actually it's found in Central America, so we can count Texas as part of the family. So beautiful fish for either pet fish if they get big and aggressive, or in the case of Geophagus, they're wonderful fish for a South American biotope system with larger species. And if you don't have any interest in either one of those types of aquariums, and you're looking for maybe a nano tank or saltwater aquarium, it doesn't matter. The main thing is get an aquarium.